You're listening to the SoulShape Podcast, where we focus on your spiritual fitness, or what we like to call your energetic self-care. We're sisters and the co-founders of SoulShape, a quantum wellness app designed to make it easier and accessible to find healing practitioners in the energy healing world, and soon to be a soul gym. We want to have soulful conversations about spirituality and holistic wellness, and whether you are dabbling or taking a deep dive into energy healing, we want to introduce modalities and healing practitioners to you one by one. So it's time to get into SoulShape. My name is LJ Woodard, and this is my sister, Leslie Bennett.
Hey.
Leslie, who are we talking with today?
Well, I think this is going to be one of those ones where we're going to leave inspired. We have a few people that can, there's a few people that talk the talk and a few that walk the walk, and this is one that does both. And so we're talking to Heather Lilly, the co-founder and executive director and yoga facilitator. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
For the Yoga Village. And we're talking about the healing benefits of community.
Community. But before we dive into this amazing conversation about community, let me tell you about Heather Lilly and what the Yoga Village is. It's a Wilmington-based nonprofit that specializes in bringing evidence-based, trauma-sensitive, and residency-focused mindful movement programs to populations that might not have access to them. Their goal is to meet communities where they are. They find spaces that feel safe enough for participants to connect to their body by partnering with local organizations to start programs where folks already gather in community, bringing yoga where it is needed most. Now, Heather Lilly has been facilitating yoga and mindfulness for about 10 years. Can I ask you, just to jump right into our conversation, what is your greatest joy in this program of the Yoga Village?
My greatest joy is getting to go out into the community and work with folks who wouldn't necessarily have access to these types of practices otherwise. Mm-hmm. And Yoga Village has been around for 10 years, but I actually started facilitating in
Oh, yeah, that's right, 20 years.
Yeah. So, yeah, a whole extra decade before I kind of hopped on and helped co-found Yoga Village. And my greatest joy really is being out with folks who just for whatever reason might not wander into a yoga studio, and getting to share these practices that have made such a big difference in my life with the folks in our community.
It really is amazing how many people out there have never experienced yoga. I mean, we all have grown up as kids. We go to our PE classes. We experience basketball. The main sports. Maybe even dance. But how yoga is still new, still an unknown to some.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's such an ancient practice.
Yeah. It's been around forever.
But in terms of access, wide access in the United States, certainly, and in a lot of other places in the world, it does feel really new, and there can be a lot of misconceptions about who can do yoga and really even what yoga means. A lot of times folks think about yoga as just the physical aspect of yoga in terms of building strength and flexibility in your body. And one of the things that I love about yoga is that it can really meet you wherever you are and really works to expand that strength and that flexibility, certainly, but in mind and body and spirit, and that it kind of crosses all boundaries of the self.
I like that where it meets you where you are, because when I first did yoga, it was in law school in the 1990s. So I just aged myself. But in the 1990s, it was so fringe, even for me. And I was in light consciousness, law-driven, focused person. And I did yoga because of the stresses of law school. And I'm like, well, I'm not into the spiritual stuff. But I really liked the, stretching, how I felt open, because I was crouched over law books and stuff all the time. But and I'm like, well, I'm not into the spiritual stuff, but I'm into the physicalness of it and the balance of it and the, just going. So I really like that. Yoga is one of those things that really can meet you where you are. So if you just want to go, I'm just doing yoga, I don't want to know about namaste. That's...
It's the best part, though.
My God is my God. Don't touch me. I don't honor you. Whatever. That's really rude. That's not what I mean to say. But I don't know where I'm going with this question or comment or sharing. Oh my gosh, I lost it. But anyway, meet you where you are. And so I would be curious then to see where in today's age, going from the 1990s to now, where are you meeting people? Like in that, where they are they more into the wholeness of yoga, or are they really just like the physicality of yoga?
I think it's been a really interesting transition from when I first started facilitating yoga. Most of what people thought it was at the time was either the physical poses or shapes that we come into in our body, or just sitting still and meditating. And so there wasn't an understanding of a little bit of the fuller breadth of what the practice can offer. And then over time, it really got focused onto the physical aspect. But then especially in this sort of new phase that we're in with, coming through this global pandemic, et cetera, it's interesting to find ourselves in a place where folks are, first of all, more aware of the research that's been done into the effectiveness of this. And that's one of the things that it's fun to be able to call it evidence-based, just because there have been some more dollars put into actual research into something that, was a
People
really...
love proof.
Yeah.
They do.
Well, and an
People
internal...
love proof.
Yeah.
That's your next T-shirt.
Yeah. Internal felt
Have a nice
sensation
day.
is a hard thing
People
to
want
prove.
proof.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, fully. And I think it now, because of that awareness and because of that more research, et cetera, there's legitimization of it in a way, and there's been, because of that evidence, because of that research, there's been a way to say, hey, we can meet you where you are. This doesn't have to be something that interferes with whatever faith you're in. And so I love that, because it gives us access to be able to work with folks who are really steeped into a wide variety of different faith traditions, but say this plays well with others. This is a thing that can even deepen and strengthen the faith that you come from. And I love that about it. And in terms of meeting folks where they are, for us, so much of it is also on that physical side of things. Like we work with folks all the time who are in wheelchairs or who feel as if they can't get up and down off the floor for whatever reason, or our kids, or say, I hear all the time, I can't do yoga because I can't sit still. And so giving folks permission to be where they are is the thing that the yoga practice really does for me personally, and that I love sharing with other folks, is that it's okay if you can't sit still. That's fine. You can move the whole time, and you have permission to do that.
But there's something about it too that's, when we're getting back to our theme, is the community. There's something about a yoga practice, a yoga class, a yoga event. That's what the Yoga Village is, amazing at. You guys throw these amazing events, and we'll get more into that. And they'll be in the show notes. Like if you're in the Wilmington area, there's amazing events. But the whole community aspect of it, there's something about doing it together with others and the conversation. I don't know, it's like sharing like a good meal or whatever it is. It's like there's something afterwards that we just had a great experience together. I don't even know you, and I'm just telling.
Namaste.
Namaste. Having this great connection. Talking before, talking after, making friends. It's another place to, meet people. And there's something that's just, I don't know, warm and fuzzy about it.
Can I say that so much different?
Yes, please.
From the
LJ way?
Yogas went from the studios to the gyms, in the fitness gyms. You'd have people, and I stopped doing yoga after this because it drove me nuts, is that people trying to outstretch you.
Those yoga show-offs. I see you.
And in my 20s, I was super bendy. Like, I could do some of those very advanced moves. And I would always try to be because I started at a really cool studio where it taught you how to be within your own body and connect to your own body. But when you go to the gym and I'm, really in my alignment, working on my alignment, and I see someone so out of alignment trying to outstretch me, I used to have to go into the corner, like away from the people to do that. So I'm sorry. Well, I'm going on big digressions today. What is wrong with me?
But I think those digressions sort of speak to how personal a yoga practice is to the individual and how much that environment that you're practicing in can affect your practice and how much growth we can find when we are aware of how we're affected by what's happening around us. And that's one of the benefits, I think, too, of my yoga practice is a sense of presence and awareness. And, oh, look, I'm noticing how this is affecting me,
Yeah.
you know?
Which is, now that I can see that and just have a nice catch to save for the digression, by the way, is that, there was something about me in competition. Like, so if I go higher up and look at the yoga class from above and going, why am I feeling that way, and going into those feelings, that demonstration of that needing that sense of competition is something that I needed to deal with in myself, that I'm enough without having to compare myself to others. So,
And that's Leslie's soulful stretch.
I was going to
That
say
that was
that hit me right in the heart right there.
Yeah.
Oof,
So yoga is much more about the physicality. It can show you what needs to be seen. I was enough without having to look at what others are doing in comparison to myself, even though it bothered me. But anyway, we're here to talk about community and
the yoga village.
and not about Leslie.
But I think also that I always joke about that because there can be these expectations of what a yoga practice is, especially when we're doing it in community spaces where we're out, as opposed to a yoga studio where there are a lot of sort of norms of behavior. You take your shoes off and you leave them in the cubby, and you leave your phone off and you keep that in your cubby perhaps. And there are these sort of norms of behavior that do not travel into community yoga spaces. And so welcoming in those potential distractions as all opportunities for us to notice how our nervous system or our body responds to somebody else's phone ringing, and all of the little judgments that might pop up into our mind, and our expectations of what our yoga practice is supposed to be like or should be like, and being in those community spaces gives us the opportunity to really kind of dive into some things that we might not always be able to do in that sort of stark relief in a yoga studio. And I think in our practices, there's people who are like maybe walking in and out and through and leaving in the middle and coming late. And it's a totally different environment. And so as the facilitator, the adventure of it is kind of bringing that sense of balance and presence, regardless of what might be happening in the space
it's still
around
new
us.
to some people. Because my background is also theater, and when I go to the theater and there's like non-theater people there, I'm like, what are you doing? Eating a bag of chips so loud? What are you doing? Like, there's some things that's like, you don't do that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not the movie theater. It's clearly a different experience and a place. And when the Yoga Village, when you guys, you reach out to so many different, let's say, different kinds of people in need. It could be homeless, abused, people that have come from trauma. What is the biggest challenge in that when you form these? Is it events, or just is it personal visits, or like what do you do to help these kind of organizations or these groups of people in need, I should say?
Well, I think we really, this is something that one of my teachers said to me that I come back to all the time. There's a sense of just trusting the power of moving and breathing together, and that what we do when we come together with these folks is recognize that when trauma occurs, a lot of times it's because power and control are taken away from an individual. And our mission with the yoga practice itself is to create opportunities for choice so that inside a relatively safe container of this practice that we're doing together, that person might be able to develop enough internal safety and relational safety to make some choices about their body. And what I know from my own yoga practice, and sort of what you were describing as well, is that little safe container of your yoga mat or the chair you're practicing on, whatever it is, becomes a place for introspection. It becomes a place where you can just notice things about yourself and how that then ripples out to so many other areas of your life. And so when we're going into these organizations, it's less about sort of helping or or saving anyone, or even I don't necessarily usually call myself a yoga teacher, because really what I'm there to do is to empower, to facilitate a safe enough space, hopefully, to empower that person to feel their own body and make choices based on how they feel.
Wow. What has been some of the most challenging places you've gone to bring yoga? Because it's such a gift. Like you're talking about the healing powers of it alone, introspective, really going within, beyond the stretching, let's say, that safety. But what has been some of the biggest challenges?
I think for myself, really coming into contact with so many different traumatic events or stories has been something that I've had to really honor in my own self, and develop some really strong practices around for myself in terms of how to hold that, so that I can really, as you were saying, walk the walk and not be getting myself burnt out. I feel like there'd be something really wrong with what we were doing if our facilitators were getting super burnt out in what we're doing, right? And so I think for me, that has been the challenge, and the gift of it is it has really made me focus in on my own personal practice. And I don't even share it with other people. It's not something that I facilitate at all, because it's this sacred thing that I do for myself. That's not even a part necessarily of what I share with other folks.
Well, I remember one time when we're having coffee, whatever, a few weeks ago, and the Yoga Village has a program at the hospital, right? And some people can't get up and walk. I mean, they're bedridden, and just the simple little practices of wrists and fingertips, just the little things, so subtle, and how it can bring so much joy and some healing power that way. I don't know. Tell me about when you go to the hospitals, like, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and one of the things that I really love about what I do is getting to kind of really deep dive into the neurology of trauma and the patterns in our brain and the patterns in our nervous system. And so, again, kind of going back to that power of just trusting, moving and breathing together, really trusting that as we're encouraging folks to meet themselves where they are, and encouraging them to let go of what they could do before they arrived in the situation they're in, and where they might get to once they leave the situation they're in, but just to be able to meet themselves exactly where they are on that day, I think is that's what I come into those rooms with. It's just, okay, here we are. We're just two humans in this room together, looking to do a little moving and breathing. We keep it really simple. And one of the things that I often relay is just this feeling of that it's not about doing it exactly right. It's about what works for you in that moment, and that the more tools we have and the more permission we feel in our own body to find those things for ourselves, that's what really has the potency. And that's why, my practice is my practice, and their practice might be their practice. And sometimes they share and sometimes they don't. And that, never matters to me, because it's really just about finding. I had one client who I worked with who is a domestic violence survivor, and we worked a lot on kind of anxiety and not being able to feel her body when she was going into court, where she would have to face a judge or face the perpetrator. And we talked about a lot of different options that she could do, and what she found was that just by bringing her thumb and her forefinger together and rubbing them together and feeling the texture and the temperature of her fingers, and that sensation, bringing herself back to that present moment sensation, was enough to help her kind of ground and feel like she could actually be present and not get overwhelmed by the situation. And it's so simple and it's so tiny, but it's so personal.
To remember to be in your own body, be yourself.
Yeah.
Like right when you said that, I'm going to try that right now. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here.
There's something
so
about
stupid.
it, right?
And I'm like, I'm here too.
Yeah,
It's,
I'm here.
It's
I'm here. Oh, E.T.
Yes. Now the Yoga Village. I mean, who is in the Yoga Village? I mean, you've got a team of great yogis and like a variety of people. Like
Yeah.
what makes up the Yoga Village?
So we think of it as the whole community because everybody is a part of this village. And it could be the folks who facilitate classes with us, which is just an amazing array of local, really qualified, wonderful, trauma-sensitive yoga and mindfulness facilitators. And then we have an amazing board that really works tirelessly to kind of keep us going. And then all of our partner organizations, and that's one of the things that really is essential for Yoga Village is because we don't have a brick and mortar studio because we are so committed to meeting folks where they are. We have these incredible long-standing relationships with so many local nonprofits in the Wilmington area, as well as in Columbus County and Pender County, some in Brunswick County. So we've really kind of spread out in this general area, and those community organizations are crucial for kind of creating these or opening up these safe spaces that they create so that we can come in and meet those folks there, as well as our incredible grantors and our donors. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without all the folks who come out to those events you were talking about.
Heather Lilly, I certainly felt it, and SoulShape was, I'm going to do a plug for us, a sponsor. We were a main sponsor at the was it Yoga Your Way, the yoga conference.
Yeah, Yoga Your Way
which,
Yoga Conference.
I mean, talk about community. So you had this great collection of yogi facilitators, teachers, some great seminars, some great, like, I mean, even just down to a great lunch. And then the vendors that were all there. And as a sponsor, we were out there promoting SoulShape and then meeting all these wonderful, just people in the holistic wellness realm, whether it be people that make tea or that, make dream catchers to, that have their own yoga studios or whatever it may be. And that's how we met a lot of our practitioners too, by the way. They, it was a great way to just meet people.
Yeah, and we see ourselves as that kind of bridge builder, and really trying to create opportunities for folks to come together in community because, a lot of times we find our yoga home, our yoga studio that is our safe place for our yoga practice. And that's so special and so wonderful. And also it can sometimes lead to a feeling of being sort of in your own little yoga island. And so reminding us that there is this sort of groundswell of yoga happening outside of the walls of the studio.
I just love that it's supportive of one another. Obviously business can be very competitive and it's natural that way, but when you all support each other, like you said, it's to me, it's a win-win. Because everyone's going to find their home and see where they land. But it was really nice to see. All those teachers teach at a variety of different places, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful to be part of that. So I just want to say thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for sponsoring. It
Look
was
at how my
such
sister's
a great
looking
event.
at me. This is why I'm acting weird.
I do that to her. Yes, we've had conversations.
But it was
It's
really
really
sweet.
Now, I want to go back to, there's a lot of people that talk about building a community. We got to build a community. It's kind of the buzzword, whether you're building a business or whether you're making a movement. What advice do you give to people who are, they really have a passion? Like you have a passion for yoga. You have a passion to lift others, to find, their inner empowerment, as you said earlier. So how does one get started? Like, I really want to build a community. And so what advice do you give?
What was the first thing you did, Heather Lilly?
You can.
Yeah, truly though, I think.
You're making fun of me. I get it now. Is this revenge or
No, I'm
something?
kidding.
Okay, sorry. We had a little sister moment there.
You're fine. I think really start from where you are. I know that's sort of been the theme is meet yourself where you are, but I think that's really true. Noticing the connections that you already have and really leveraging the community that you already have and focusing, on the community that already exists as opposed to creating something completely new. We really invested in our relationships with the yoga studios and with community organizations where we had some connections to really get things started. And then also remembering some patience And for me, remembering that it is in no way a linear path, and that if you are moving down a particular path and some obstacles appear to be in that path, you've got so many choices: over, under, through, or maybe take a left turn and see what's down the path this other way that you might not have been expecting. And I think taking those sort of meandering ways through have been really helpful for us to build the community that we have and to work with these organizations, because they're dynamic too. I mean, we might have a connection at a particular organization, and then they leave that organization, and in a certain way, it's sort of like starting from the beginning, and so we're always constantly working on maintaining those relationships. That's one of the most important things we do.
That was going to be my next question. We're always so focused on we got to build, we got to build, we got to build. But there's that other aspect is as you collect people, and grow, you need to maintain.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? How do you keep that engagement?
Yeah. Well, I think sustainability is one of our core values, and that's really what we focus on, especially because of what we know about trauma and what can happen when folks, have somebody who comes in and does a couple of yoga practices and then leaves, and how that can perpetuate those trauma dynamics in a community. And so really focusing on what you actually are able to sustain is really important. And then also, ask your question one more time, because I feel like there was something else I wanted to say.
So
and
we
then
talk
I lost
about,
it.
grow.
Oh, yeah.
And then, and then, maintain and engage.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you, we get to 1 million followers, and think aspirationally. And then, how do you keep it from going to 900 and whatever, 99,
Because some
No, I'm
people
not going for the
unfollow.
one.
Why do you do that?
I try not to take it personally. It's all part of their
I do.
journey.
No, I
Yeah,
don't.
exactly. I'm into Tai Chi instead.
No, sorry.
No, but I think there is that important, because we so focus on collecting that we don't really, nurture, those that have chosen to be part of the community. So what do you do to build that or nurture those that have chosen to say, hey, I'm in the community. Whoa.
Well, we do our best to celebrate a lot.
Oh, yeah, you have your 10-year anniversary
Yes,
coming up.
we have our 10-year
I'm going to this.
anniversary.
Tell the
Yay!
folks out there about the 10-year
Am
anniversary.
I not invited?
You're so invited.
Will I be here?
No,
No.
sorry, you're out of town.
You can come virtually. You'll be here in spirit.
Yeah, for sure.
It's October 28th in the morning, and true to Yoga Village, we'll have 3 simultaneous yoga practices in 3 kind of separate locations, all in the same space. And so there's a little something for everybody. There's some family yoga, some chair yoga, some power yoga, and then raffles from some amazing local businesses. And we're going to give out our first ever Yoga Villagers Awards, the Peaceful Warrior Awards, to a couple folks in our community. And we're really excited about that too.
Tell me what a peaceful warrior is.
So it's the name, the English name for, also sometimes folks call it maybe reverse warrior or extended side angle. I've heard both of them called peaceful warrior. So
Humble, harmony, was it dancing warrior?
yeah,
Full
humble
of-
warrior.
full of life.
Yeah. So that's sort of where it came from, was trying to loop in one of the Yoga Shape names. But really, those awards are to celebrate and to nurture those folks who have made such a huge difference in what we know of as Yoga Village, because it's been quite the journey over the past 10 years. And we really wanted to take a pause and recognize some folks who have made a huge difference in us being able to spread these practices in our community.
So how many warriors do we have in your community?
Wow, gosh, I don't know that I've ever been asked that question before. I can tell you that just in terms of folks who have come to our community programs, not our events, not the conference, not the Battleship Yoga, none of that, but just in the past year and a half, we have facilitated over 1,500 yoga practices. And many of those
Impressive.
are with more than one person. Many of them are with lots and lots of people. And so I don't even know what I would say the number of people in this village.
She's going to go home and count now.
I know. I'm like, I don't even
Just
know how
count
we
that.
would count.
Well, the Yoga Village is doing good work, and yoga is life-changing. It truly is. It's a life-changing experience and a practice I've been doing, since I'm about 20 years now into it. I remember I started when I was pregnant with my daughter, who's 23. That's kind of how I fell into it, because I wanted to stay in shape. I'm like, how am I going to stay in shape? What's an exercise I can do? And then it became so much more than exercise.
How can I stay in shape and stay sane and
No, it
be
was-
loving?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Well, I guess I'm going to do an open-ended question here. As someone who is an advocate for community, and you use in your tool of choice is yoga, what would you offer to those that, maybe their tool of choice is something, or a passion of choice, maybe it's not a tool, a calling of choice. Is it calling a choice? No. Anyway, a calling. What would you say to, someone who's, loves talking about community, loves, being a part of building and the rewards of that? Maybe let's do that one first. Tell me about the rewards of building a community and sustaining a community.
Well, I think the connection for myself is one of the biggest rewards, and seeing all of the connections. Just it touched my heart earlier when you were talking about the conference last year, and hearing that was, while you guys were such wonderful and generous sponsors of the event, but that it was also reciprocal for you, and that some of your practitioners came from that event, and
Some fabulous people.
yeah, and what we also know about trauma is that it doesn't happen necessarily in isolation. It happens in the terms of a relationship, and it can also be healed in the terms of a relationship. And that's one of the healing powers of community, is that it gives us this possibility of coming together and healing together. Even if though we're healing individually, being in the presence of other balanced nervous systems, other people working for the same thing that they're passionate about, can have such a huge and healing effect. We look at
I'm like starstruck right now. I'm like, that was so good.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Well, and I wasn't even thinking of yoga.
Put
as
that
I
on
was
a
saying
shirt.
that. I was even thinking of, Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, my head's spinning.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I think about so many things we do in community where it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's like there's another gym I go to, or fitness. I mean, they have established community, the high fives.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, what are you doing this weekend? Let's do this run. Let's do this. When I think about theater, when you get in a room with people and you're like, okay, we're going to rehearse something for 6 to 8 weeks, and that sense of community, before you know it, you're driving each other and you're feeding each other and you're doing so many, and you're learning from each other and you're growing up together. There's so many. Community it's all about community.
Yeah.
Community.
Well, and I think, as we're coming out of what we came out of, at the beginning of this decade, I think it's sometimes hard to reconnect. I've talked to a few people like, oh my God, I've lost all those social skills. Like, I feel.
How do you do it? Oh, do you
I feel
want to
so
go?
awkward
Do you
these
want to
days.
go have a happy hour? Remember that? Like we're like, do you want to? I don't know. It's hard to. Right,
Yeah, is that a thing we
get
still
back
do?
into the swing of things?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're talking about ourselves now. We're going off the thing.
There's nothing wrong with a good happy hour with friends.
Right. For sure.
Truth.
Okay. So you have this event, your 10-year anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If we had champagne, we'd pop the cork.
It feels like, 10 years, what in the world? That's just a long time to be doing anything. And talk about nurturing community and maintaining community. Sometimes, that feels like it feels like a really strong responsibility, and something that we really care about collectively.
You're
as
the parent of it.
Yeah, and I am so grateful that it's not just me,
Yeah.
and that it's a whole village that
Yeah.
is working to maintain that community, because it definitely has had its ups and downs for sure, especially just in terms of working against some of the paradigms of competition and recognizing that it is part of our mission to make sure that our programs are sustainable, and that means that we pay our teachers. And so how does that bump up against competition in other places, and really working towards thinking of new and creative ways of making sure that it doesn't feel like competition, and receiving and honoring the feedback when it does from the folks who are experiencing that feeling, and changing based on what we hear. And I think that's something that's so crucial to community, is a sense of authentic and reciprocal communication, and making sure that again, with the trauma, because that's how I roll, but that what is so crucial for maintaining community and maintaining relational safety and security is the opportunity for rupture and repair. If everything just goes smoothly the whole time, then somebody's not being totally honest, because we don't all feel super great all the time. And so even if our intention isn't actually the impact that is received by the other person, can we use our practice to be present enough to listen to that feedback and to make changes based on what we hear? And let me tell you, we do that all the time.
So do we. No, I think there was a little nugget in there too that was somewhat brushed over, and that's authenticity. One of the things too, I think when we're working in an industry, whether it's yoga, but in the more spiritual fitness arena, it really is, we're really trying to advocate for an abundance for all, right? Because it's not just one way to the highway of spiritual highway. I'm just making this up on the fly. It sounds pretty good though. I think, some days yoga will feed my soul, but other times it may be, a past life regression session, because I want to explore something that's coming up. So, I really think authenticity, that partnership, allowing things to occur. I love that rupture and repair. What was it?
Yeah, rupture and repair.
That's an interesting thing that occurs a lot.
In relationships with sisters, for example, maybe.
We've had
I don't
rupture
know.
and
Couple
repair.
rupture and repair.
We had a big rupture.
Looks like it got relatively repaired, though. So there you go.
And I'm thankful for that.
Oh,
That's why
yeah.
we're here today. This is why this
It was
is
like
what
an
happened.
18-month rupture.
Oh.
That's nice.
Is it 18 months?
I don't know. I
Anyway.
really didn't count. That's something I don't want to count or look back.
But it's sort of like, that there, I'm going to forget the name of the style of pottery art, but the Japanese style where when something breaks, they actually glue it back together with this sort of gold glue, and that the cracks in it are what make it beautiful. And I think that there's something to that honoring that rupture and repair and taking a moment to notice that is that, it brings us back together even more strongly and in a new kind of co-created way.
Bigger and better than ever before.
We must be showing off a lot of gold. That's what I kind of thought. I'm just joking for that.
Wow.
I got a lot of gold with my siblings too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. All
They
kinds
they
of
give us
gold.
lots of gold.
Yeah.
We have a brother too.
Hi, Kurt. Little brother. He doesn't listen.
He doesn't
He'll
listen.
He'll listen to this one.
I don't think so, Laura.
We'll make him.
You can try. All right. So I think if there's anything else from the Yoga Village you want to plug, this is your time. Otherwise, we'll go to the Soulful
We're going to put it all in the show notes, the website, the events.
Yeah.
I know, Yoga Village, you offer scholarships too.
That is one thing that we didn't talk about that I was going to kind of talk about. Something came up earlier when I lost my thread, and I was going to bring up the scholarship piece. So thank you for bringing us back to that. But that coming back to sustainability and how do we nurture this community is
The scholarships.
it's not just our facilitators. We really want to kind of increase the ability for folks inside of all the communities where we work to be equipped to offer these practices. And when we first really kind of started dreaming up Yoga Village, our dream was to create a community where all these organizations really saw the benefit of this and integrated these practices so much into what they were doing that Yoga Village barely needed to exist anymore. That's really
We need like a musical interlude.
yeah.
But the scholarship,
So-
it's like for someone wants to get certified, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not cheap. It's
Yeah.
not crazy. It's not as expensive as college.
But yeah, increasing access is crucial
Yeah.
for sure, and we have lots of mechanisms for that. We're really grateful for, and for us, there's a lot of folks who want to do that initial 200-hour or 300-hour certification in yoga, but we also work towards offering scholarships specifically in more of the trauma-sensitive yoga that we typically practice, and also in other things like the community resiliency model. We're always trauma-sensitive mindfulness. We're always kind of expanding what our services look like so that we can continue to meet those folks, because we are Yoga Village, but if we're working with somebody who isn't really interested in that asana component, what else can we bring to the table,
No, I like that. For all folks.
Wow.
For all folks.
All folks, yeah.
So if you're someone who's getting called to yoga, maybe reach out to Yoga Village and
Yeah.
maybe see if that scholarship's for you.
Or start a yoga village in your community.
Yeah.
If you're listening in
Oh,
Ireland.
are you-
I think we have an Ireland listener. Remember the
Ooh,
stats?
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Just finished Dairy Girls. Loved that show.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm gonna start that. Okay.
Okay. We're trying to get to a
some
soulful.
It's time to soulful
Okay.
stretch.
Okay,
Okay.
so every at the episode, we do a soulful stretch, something that may have changed our mind, opened our hearts, something that we're working on. I always start, and you would think it was something earlier in this episode, but I really am digging the rupture and repair because I think, looking back at my healing journey, there have been so many ruptures that ended up on roads that were better than the road I was on. So I really love rupture and repair. So I'm digging that. Laura?
My soulful stretch was that great reminder. I didn't even realize this is really why I like yoga, is being in. I mean, I love it, but it's
Why do
like
I like
being
yoga?
in my. Why do I like it so much? Why am I so busy in my joint? No, I'm just having your own safe space, and you just don't even realize it. You're in literally your own. Even with all the people around you, you truly are in
That's a good one, Laura.
your space, in your moment, within you.
All
Finger
right,
tapping.
Miss Heather Lilly. You're up.
Well, my soul stretch today, I think, was actually being here and talking to you guys. This is my very first podcast.
You did fabulous.
Thank you.
Isn't
should
she
have your-
lovely?
you should have your
Single
own.
fire.
And so for me, getting to have this opportunity to be here with you guys and have this authentic conversation really felt like a soul stretch. And I also just kind of talking about these things like the competitive nature of things and that paradigm, and thinking about rupture and repair. That's when the rupture and repair really resonates for me too, and finding ways to really feel that safety inside my own self. I've been doing my own little tips and tricks for internal felt sensation of safety this whole time.
Well, Heather Lilly, you are a great yoga facilitator, and I'm glad you formed and co-founded Yoga Village. We can tell just by looking at her. For those of you, if you're listening, but go to the YouTube channel as well. Heather Lilly is like, you're beaming with such joy with this program and with this nonprofit, and we can tell. So let's wrap it up, folks. We want to say thank you to Heather Lilly. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Signal Fire Media, and to our listeners. We believe wellness starts within, and you can unlock unlimited possibilities with energetic healing. So we want you to embrace the woo, dabble, dive, or discover your next healing experience on the SoulShape app. And we hope you've enjoyed this soulful stretch and that you do something to raise your vibration today, because the ripple effects are endless. Join us again, and be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the SoulShape Podcast. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Thank you.